Guess what? I'm checking out the Spectrum from Retro Games Limited. As for how that ties into my usual business of soldering things together, there's something special coming up in that regards as well, so stick around for that. Well, alrighty then. So, do you have a moment to talk about keeping up with the Commodore? There's a point to this, I promise. And for me, this is where it all started. In '87, this one was released to the market, and that Christmas, me and my brother got it as a present from our parents, which was a bit odd because it was a bit out of our price range at the time. I loved the damn thing, despite being in kindergarten at the time, and being 88 by the time I learned how to load a game. There really was only 3 computers in existence at that point. There was the Commodore, the Amiga, and the generic Office PC. And I know there were other systems. This is just what I knew as a kid in 1988 in Norway, at a time where nothing that worked would ever get replaced. So what you had is what you had. But what happened to the ZX Spectrum in Norway? Digging a little deeper, I turned to the publications of the time. Looking at the subscriber numbers for one of the earlier magazines in Norway, we have ZX Spectrum almost at the top of the list in 1983. We have Commodore ahead, and also Commodore coming up the list behind it. Moving just 1 year into the future, Norway goes from an economic crisis and into an upswing. We all start buying fancy new stuff with electronics in it. While once in line for dominance, the ZX Spectrum started falling on the lists. And for those that find such things interesting, here are the prices for 1984. Note that the 48K Spectrum costs just about as much as the Commodore 64. As for the years that followed, bankruptcy, economic crisis, all that. I can't believe I started with economics. And what was the point of all that? The home computer wars had ended, because we were all too broke to do something different. All before I started kindergarten. However, I'm a big fan of the ZX Spectrum, even though I didn't own one before 2018, and now that I have one, I still won't call it the most iconic microcomputer of the 80s, but I will call it a close second. And what does a good game look like on the ZX Spectrum? As for sound, you're hearing that out of your speakers as you'd expect. However, the machine itself always generated noise from a speaker inside it. Basically, you can imagine the cheapest speaker known to man screaming at you from your fingertips, with no volume control. And that's pretty nice compared to a certain musical atrocity that headlines the release of Manic Miner. So before moving on, let's check out something in the form of a demo by the 1-Bit Wizards. And because I can't stop myself, here's the same thing, but in red. This is the one that I do my testing and modding on. Now, where was I? Apparently somewhere in my list of Commodore betrayals. And here's a white one. But wait, I need this one, because it's different. It's the recreated 48K ZX Spectrum Harlequin. The one without the ULA chip. making it sound like it would be an easily repairable ZX Spectrum, but in its place there's a metric ton of logic chips, so if this one goes, I have no idea how to fix it. On the plus side, it has RGB. And speaking of plus sides, we have this ZX Spectrum Plus. All the games still look like this, but now we have a different keyboard. Gone are the soft and mushy rubbery keys, replaced with something that's 90% sharp angles. It's another iconic design, just not a very good keyboard. As for other features, they did add a reset switch, which is something, I guess. As for real upgrades, they did bump up the memory to 128K shortly before being sold off to their main rival, Amstrad. Given the good old Amstrad treatment, we got the impressively long ZX Spectrum Plus 2. And here's another one. Because who knows how durable that one's going to be. On the plus side, we got a proper sound chip. Due to messing up the audio circuitry, the quality is rather low. Just a quick fix, now that we have the internet. All in all, a nice machine that's come quite a long way despite running most of the same things. I mean, here's Outrun on a 48K Spectrum. Here's Outrun on a Plus 2. That's half a decade of improvements. Even has 2 joystick ports that you can never use, because all of the SJS1 joysticks broke 3 decades ago. Amstrad didn't leave it there though, they finally added a proper disk drive. Just chose to go with a weird 3-inch drive that they found in an abandoned warehouse somewhere. And in case you're thinking it, it's not a rounding error, it's a 3-inch drive, which I replaced with a Gotek drive. Because if I haven't stumbled across a set of 3-inch discs so far, then I won't stumble across many in the future either. Well, okay then. So you bought a lot of Sinclair stuff for a Commodore kid. So show us one thing you did that wasn't just buying a lot of stuff. And I designed and built my own variation of the Interface 2, complete with Sinclair compatible joystick ports, implemented using 80s components. Does that count? No? Well, okay. I guess we'll continue on with the main topic for today, the Spectrum, which is the latest release from Retro Games Limited. And while I'm still tempted to call it a mini, it's really a full-size machine. It's actually the first of its kind that I've pre-ordered. And why is that? The first is that I'm not a big fan of single-use electronics, so for me there has to be something more interesting than comes directly in the box. Thankfully they've been good with that kind of thing, so if you have something you can put it on a USB stick and use it as you please. The second reason is, well, if you looked at the list of computers I've just shown you, and you can probably tell that I'm more of a hardware guy. So for me it has to have the correct tactile feeling of the thing. My first impression though is that this very much resembles a premium product. The kind we used to get when opening up a new mobile phone, at least before they started packaging them up like produce. But you've seen all of that, so let's skip ahead. Bringing back the white recreation, You can hardly tell which one is the, well, more exact copy, mostly due to the fact that the Sinclair name has disappeared along the way. The weird part though, and this is probably entirely subjective, is that the Spectrum actually has a better keyboard. Rubber Matte is grippy in a decidedly rubbery way, meaning that your fingers stay put instead of sliding around. Might not do much for touch typing, but for gaming it seems ideal. And for someone who's replaced any of the faceplates, I am way too happy to have one that isn't just randomly popping off somewhere between now and whenever next time I see it. I've seen people commenting on the price of this thing, so let's break down the costs of the alternative. In this case, the ZX Spectrum Harlequin. For that you need a PCB, the ICs themselves, of which there are a lot. In addition, you need to buy the case, keyboard membrane, rubber mat, and the faceplate separately. Then in true Sinclair spirit, you need to solder everything together and hope that it works. You'll also need to find a suitable PSU that won't burn your house down. To be able to enjoy the improved picture quality, we need a custom cable to hook it up to an at least 10-year-old TV or monitor. Anything newer and those analog inputs are simply gone. Or you could go to the step of purchasing an upscaler, which is a price unto itself. And because most of everything that goes onto the motherboard went out of production almost 2 decades ago, we also need to deal with the fact that a lot of it will just randomly fail on you. As for loading games and software, you'll still be stuck on 40-year-old tapes that someone stored in their basement, or loft, or wherever. That's quite harmful to magnetic tapes. Keep things modern though, I prefer to load things from SD card. And this is one of the more affordable ones. But really, do you actually need all that? Well, I do, because I enjoy working with the hardware. But there is something to be said for having a machine that just works because you want to play something, you want to play around with it, and not having to troubleshoot something. Is it worth it? Yeah. To use, just plug it in and pick a language that you recognize. And for the 50Hz option, that's where we live. Next we are greeted with the standard carousel mode, which is the Retro Games Limited way of not just popping you into basic. I like how in particular all of the relevant commands are always shown at the bottom of the screen. There's not really much in the way of settings to tweak, but I'll start with setting a custom frame so that you can easily tell where the footage is coming from, either my real Spectrum or the Spectrum. Also, if you wanted to, under advanced options is also where you find the option to switch over to the classic mode, which is the standard basic screen. Since we're here, I guess we'll have to type something in. If you've never used a 48K Spectrum before, but have tried it in an emulator, then this is the point where you realize how necessary the keyboard is. Using a standard keyboard to emulate it simply doesn't work. Mainly because you're hitting keys and not directly entering basic commands. For a keyword like print, you just hit P. The rest is filled in by the computer. R is run and so on. Both magic and infuriating. But at least we can save it for later. Now that we're finally getting somewhere, let's find another classic from the list. It was probably one of the pack-in titles that you got with the machine, but that doesn't mean it's a bad one. The Spectrum does a good job of presenting the keys that you need to use. As for audio, it's still as offensive as you remember it. Junium Tang, the developer of this game, also wrote one of the best books on developing games for the ZX Spectrum. So if you ever wanted to learn assembly language, I highly recommend picking up a reprinted copy of his book, Spectrum Machine Language for the Absolute Beginner. But that's all apples and oranges. Let's just put some bad apples together instead. Beginning with the +3 and then switching to the Spectrum as I feel like it. Differences in capture characteristics aside, I think that's perfectly adequate. As for sound quality, both are probably better than my unmodded +2. Let's keep with the momentum and check out one of the games that Ashens described as interesting. And that crashes the same on all of them. So let's move on to something else, which is Outrun. But I can't do that because Sega won't allow people to share video of that with the music intact. So let's go with Travel Through Time Volume 1 Northern Lights. No comparison there, or even to it. The thing looks as good as a demo, and it's actually fun to play. So let's do what I can't do elsewhere. Save. As for previous releases from Retro Games Limited, I did pick up a couple of them some time ago. The first was the C64 Mini. I wouldn't call it good, but at least I was happy to buy something from the shop. It emulates games pretty well, but having to hook up a USB keyboard to do anything interesting with it meant it stayed in box. The Amiga 500 Mini suffered a similar story, but it also came with one major limitation. If you can't run Workbench, then is it even an Amiga? Sure, you could hack it and install a Linux variant on it, but that's a pretty miserable way of running Linux, even if it does get you Workbench and everything else. And as for the Spectrum, there are certainly some features that I would have liked to see, but it's the first one that I would wholeheartedly recommend picking up. Simply because where the others came up short, this one is complete in and of itself. So what's the problem with all of these? Here's one. It's the one that came with the C64 Mini. It's absolutely terrible. You're going to have a significantly harder time playing the games than you're used to, and if you stick with it, you'll break it faster than a Cheetah 125 Plus. Problem is, the C64 Mini doesn't take a lot of other joysticks. As for their follow-up, they came with a gamepad. This one. It's what you'd call functional, but to be honest, the real reason you'd want a D-pad like that is to avoid a Nintendo patent that expired in 2005. If you were to just buy something, I'd pick up the gamepad. Works on all three consoles and, well, it's functional. But as I tend to buy things and then start making things, the first step that I took was to replace the C64 Mini controller with this one, which is why it's called the C64 JoyKey. And because I couldn't stop myself, I made it compatible with a real C64, as well as the emulated kind. Waiting for the Spectrum though, I started to revisit the project, and to have something for the Spectrum, it has to be RoboCop. And because I wanted to be able to use it on every machine shown today, I made it Kempston compatible. And as for all of the rest, I did redesign the boards for GP 2040 firmware, which basically takes care of just about anything for us. And as for actually building one, well, we'll see in a future episode, which means that this video is over. Just after a little bit of RoboCop.
Serve the public trust. Protect the innocent. Uphold the law.
Well, then that's all I have for you. As for what comes next, probably Christmas. But I hope to return with the build video for the controller, and if funds stretch so far in the new year, I'll see about making a adapter for the DB9 joysticks as well. Bye!